I'm just kidding. You're listening to Let's Stay Together Anime Break, the sub-series of Let's Stay Together where we talk about the 2019 Anime Fruits Basket. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're talking about episode 24, which is called Let's Go Home. It's the second to last episode. There's only one left.
It is.
Yeah. What are we going to do? We're just have to focus on the manga.
I say take a break.
Yeah, I'll take a break like we did before. Well, that's definitely going to happen, but not yet. So this episode covered the same content as chapters 32 and 33. And we talked about this in our episode 16-17, which was called This Time Will Be Different. But there's other stuff in that episode that hasn't been covered by the anime yet. So if you're trying to stay spoiler-free, then don't listen to it yet. Mm-hmm. Don't do it. It's a trap.
Or do it. We're not your moms.
I mean, whatever. Yeah, you can actually do whatever you want. But I'm just saying. I'm just here to deliver the information that, yeah. I think those episodes were they were well received, that's for sure. I think there was a lot of comments about them. So maybe after the series is done, depending on what gets covered next episode, I recommend going back and listening to them. But, yeah. So this episode opens with Kyo as a young child surrounded by people who are in shadow. And they're whispering. Rumors fly about his mother's death. Shut up, he thinks, and they continue to speculate and say things like, poor thing, if only she hadn't given birth to the cat spirit. Shut up, he says. It's not my fault. That's right, I understand, a man says, and it turns out that it's Shisho, the man that we met last time. He introduces himself to Kyo, and his name is Kazuma Soma. It's not my fault, Kyo continues to say over and over again. It's okay, Kazuma says, and he kneels next to Kyo. I understand. Kyo looks shocked, and then he suddenly starts to cry. Cosmo invites him to come and live with him, and then we cut to the opening credits.
The really cheerful opening credits.
Yeah, I was like, oh. Yeah, it's a little jarring, but whatever. After the credits, we open the rest of the episode, in Shigure's house. Everyone exchanges greetings with Shisho, and Tohru serves tea, and Kyo grumps in the corner, as expected. Shigure introduces Shisho to Tohru and explains that Kazuma is Kyo's martial arts master, and he also taught Yuki and Kagura and Haru as well. He says that he's heard a lot about her, that she knows about the zodiac curse, for example, and she's like, yes, and he's like, I see. Shigure sasses Kyo for not greeting Kazuma. They haven't seen each other since Kyo's mountain seclusion, right? He asks, aren't you happy to see him? And Kyo stands up to sass Shigure back, but sees Yuki and instead walks off. Shisho has to be pointed to Kyo's room and then takes off to find him. Shigure and Kagura chuckle and are like, that's so like him. Tohru asks what they mean, and Kagura explains that Kyo is of course happy to see Shisho, but doesn't want to show his feelings in front of everyone, especially Yuki. Shisho finds Kyo in his room, standing at the window. Kyo apologizes for his rudeness, and then he suddenly turns, the gleam in his eye, and strikes at Shisho, who blocks. Shisho smiles back, and Kyo smiles too. Welcome back, Shisho, Kyo says excitedly, and Shisho ruffles his hair and returns his greeting. So we cut to downstairs. Kagura and Tohru prepare food, and they chat. Shisho isn't one of the zodiac, but he is from the main family, Kagura says. Shisho's grandfather was the cat before Kyo, so he might be the one who best understands Kyo's situation. But it always seems like more than that, Kagura says, and we see an image of young Kyo training with Shisho. Like he really loves Kyo-kun as a real father would. A real father, Tohru says, and then we transition back to Kyo's room. Shisho and Kyo chat. Shisho is back from his training journey. Kyo is excited that he might be able to return to live with him at the dojo. Shisho says that he is to continue living with Shigure, and Kyo is like, wait, you're breaking your promise? Are you scared of Aikido too? It's not that. It's because I judged this place the best environment for you. Whether her living with you was coincidence or fate, he says, thinking of seeing Tohru and Kyo walking together earlier in the day. Or, like, the last episode. In our time.
It's like I saw you a week ago.
Yeah, basically. If she can be a comfort to you, Shisho starts to say, but Kyo cuts him off. I don't like this place, he says, standing suddenly, fists clenched. It's like I'm sitting in a lukewarm bath and my skin's getting pruny. Sometimes I hate it so much I can barely stand it. He looks away, and we see an image of Tohru standing, surrounded by flowers, facing away as a breeze blows. I never asked to be comforted, he says. I hate it. I don't think that's it, Cosmo thinks. It's not hate. And then we cut to evening. The pace of this episode is also really fast, just like some of the other ones that we've seen before. Mm-hmm. So we cut to evening, the sun is setting, the kids all try to determine where Shisho and Kagura will stay for the night. Kyo grumps about it, of course, but they decide that it would be best for him to stay with Kyo, especially because Shigure's room is a sty, it turns out. Like, they open the door and they're like, discover a bunch of garbage in his room or whatever. Kagura goes off to ask if that's okay. Meanwhile, Tohru talks to Kyo. She says that he must have a lot to talk to Shisho about, and he's like, not really. She also asks excitedly, Oh yes, if it's possible, I would love to see you and Shisho-san do what you call going a few rounds sometime. And Kyo doesn't respond. I love the way they phrase that, where she's like, I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
I want to see you do it. We cut upstairs to Kagura singing about Shisho's futon, where she stops when she hears Shisho and Shigure talking outside, and we cut outside to the balcony. You can see clouds forming in the distance. Kazuma says, tonight I will remove it. I apologize in advance for the commotion it will cause. Oh dear, Shigure says, what made you decide this so suddenly? Today, when I saw how he looks at her, Kazuma says, remembering Kyo smiling at Tohru earlier that afternoon. / last episode. / a week ago. I thought perhaps...
Just imagine it took him a week to walk from the sidewalk where they all were to the house.
Well, he's not Haru. How did he get from there to Shigure's house? A mystery. I thought perhaps if she stands a chance of opening his heart, and perhaps she will accept him. And perhaps she will accept him. Either way, I feel it's best to find out now rather than later. Shisho finishes. Kagura can be seen through the door listening in the background. Shigure looks away and thinks, even you choose to entrust everything to her? You can't be certain that it will succeed, Shigure says. Even if she does accept him, it's likely that Kyo will reject that. And this time, he may well break for good. He may come to despise even you. He may never smile at you again. Are you willing to bet on such long odds? We focus on Kazuma and cut to a memory of his. Middle school Kyo holds up a burnt fish as they sit together for a meal and is like, how did this even happen? Shisho, you're really not good at this. Yeah, Shisho says, I definitely need more training, and Kyo laughs. Even so, Shisho thinks in the present, I'll take my chances on her. We cut back to the hallway and Kagura has gone, and then we cut to a bit later. Kazuma asks for some of Toru's time that night, and then cut to later again, outside. So there's these two little scenes just in between. Outside, Kazuma meets with Kyo. Kyo complains about meeting outside. You know I feel lousy on days like this, he says. Kazuma says that his grandfather was the same. Could it be because of the cat spirit? Because your true form spirit hates the rain? Kazuma asks, as we focus on Kyo's bracelet. It's about time that you truly accept your true form, Kazuma says. I do accept it, Kyo shouts, and rain starts to fall. I accept that being born with the cat spirit meant my life was already over, and that's the rat's. It's his fault. That he was the cause of all of this. We cut inside briefly and see that Yuki stands by the window. Kazuma remembers Kyo shouting the same thing as a child, in the same place as the earlier scene where they met. He yells at a man as Kazuma holds him back. I'll kill him, then I'll die too. Then you'll be satisfied, right? Tiny Kyo yells. Back in the present, Kazuma says, you haven't changed. Do you plan to keep living this way? Plugging your ears, closing your eyes, concealing everything beneath your hate for Yuki? Is that the only way you can sustain yourself? We cut inside again and see that Shigure sits in the dark, perhaps listening as well, and Kagura looks out of the window at them. And then, Shisho continues, and then do you plan to die like this, all alone, like my grandfather? We cut back into Kazuma's memory again. He stands in a darkened room as a child. A hand, wearing the same bracelet as Kyo's, reaches out through bars and holds out something to him. We fade back to the present. You said you hate this place, Kazuma says, but that's not true. You're trying to run away. He grabs Kyo's arm and continues, you realize that the warmth from this lukewarm water comforts you. However, the truth is that you don't want your true form to be discovered. You're scared of what you'll lose if it's found out. You're just trying to run away from this uncertain situation. We see Kyo's panicked face and then focus on Kazuma's eyes. He looks determined. I'll take away your option to run, he says, and we will learn whether or not you'll lose what you found. Kyo, let's find out if your life is truly already over. Kyo turns. He suddenly sees Tohru behind him. Kazuma covers his eyes and then removes his bracelet. It's all right, we hear a woman's voice say, and we see Yuki, we flash back to Yuki, Shigure, Kagura, and Tohru again, and Kazuma. Because I love you, the voice continues. That's why I don't want others to see you. Nobody look at my child. The bracelet falls. Don't look. Don't look. Disgusting, we see a younger Akito saying, and we focus on Kyo's eye. The orange iris shrinks and then expands to fill his whole eye, and the shape becomes less human. Don't look, Kyo screams. Toru's umbrella blows away, and we fade to black. We fade in from black and focus on the bracelet on the ground in the current, in the present, and then it fade transitions to another time in the past. This is Kyo's true form, we hear. And then, so the whole rest of the scene is, it kind of, as Kyo transforms, it's cut between two scenes. One in the past with Akito and Shigure, and then this one in the present. So in the present, Kyo falls to the ground, holding himself. His shirt tears as his arms get bigger and turn sort of like into monstrous arms with large paws. The scene is interspersed with another scene of Kyo's memory from the past. Young Akito and Shigure stand, with Shigure standing behind him, watch as Kyo transforms. And Akito comments, "His body is gross and misshapen. And what's that? What an awful smell, like the smell of something rotten." We cut back to the present and Kyo's body has transformed. We see his head transform last. Like he's fighting the transformation almost. He struggles and groans. You can see like veins kind of like popping up on his face. His eyes are red and they're filled with tears. We see the last scene of Kyo with Akito and Shigure in the past. And Kyo, as a smaller looking kind of like monstrous form, crouches before them outside. Shigure and Akito stand inside. And we see smoke kind of rising off of Kyo's monstrous form. "This is the cat spirit's true form," Akito says. And we cut back to the present. Tohru looks down at Kyo, who's now fully transformed into a monstrous creature with like brownish, tannish skin, long gangly arms and wide paws, pointed teeth, and glowing orange eyes, probably most strikingly.
Mm-hmm.
"Kyo-kun," she says hesitantly. "It's disgusting," we see Akito saying in the memory. And then we see Kyo's human form, he grunts. And then we see Kyo in the present in his true form, and he jumps on the roof and then takes off into the woods. We see Yuki and Kagura again, and then cut to the woods. Kyo jumps through the trees. She saw me, he thinks. It's all over. And the scenes show like his human form interspersed in some of the scenes, just like in the manga when we read it. "I'm done for," he thinks. Cut back to the house, and Cosmo explains that this is the other form that Kyo is hiding. "Does it disgust you?" he asks Tohru, who stands still in shock. "Does it scare you?" Tohru starts to run away, and Kagura, who was at the window, closes the curtains. Cosmo picks up Kyo's bracelet and wonders, "Will you comfort him for me?" Tohru runs through the woods and she trips over a tree root. She stops and vomits. A smell I'd never smelled. A form that I've never seen, she thinks. Is that Kyo-kun's other form? What should I do? What's going on? She thinks of Kyo as his human self. I don't know what the right thing to do is. And then she steadies herself against a tree, looking determined, but thinks, but. And we cut away to a lake below a cliff. Kyo sits on a rock. What's the matter? Did something happen again? We hear, and Kyo has a memory of his mother comforting him after the same incident we saw earlier. So, like, all of the scenes that are kind of Kyo's memory of the past of this time he transformed and this time with his mother, it, like, goes sequentially through and is interspersed with stuff that's happening in the present. So we have this memory of Kyo with his mother in the past. His mother comforts him. She, like, holds him kind of from behind. "Kyo, did Akito say something to you?" "It's all right because I love you," she says. He remembers her putting his bracelet back on his wrist. Stop it, he thinks, and he slams his hand into the cliffside. It rumbles and it moves precariously, which was terrifying. I've had enough, he thinks dejectedly, and he looks back, as if he suddenly senses someone. Tohru standing at the edge of the area, leaning against a tree. "Kyo-kun," she calls quietly and timidly. "Stay away," he yells. His voice is kind of like altered in his current monstrous state. So whenever he speaks, it's this like monstrous voice, and whenever he thinks, it's like his regular voice, which is interesting.
Speaking with auto-tune.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like auto growl.
Yeah.
It's like the auto tune they use for like heavy metal music or something.
Yeah.
He asks why she's following him, like nothing's wrong, and she takes a few steps forward, and he yells at her again. "I said stay away. What's wrong with you?" Then we pan up as he stands, clearly taller than usual, so he is actually like standing up, which he didn't really do in the manga. And his form is dark, but his eyes continue to glow bright orange. "Are you blind? Can't you smell? We both know that I'm creepy and sickening," he shouts as she approaches, and she ends up crawling up because he's up on a hill, so she crawls beside him on her hands and knees. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" he says. "I don't need any of your pity." Please no more, he thinks. "Kyo-kun, but she says, and then he remembers his mother's words. He strikes out at her so hard and hits her so hard that she flies off of the hill and into the lake. "Get lost," he says. And we see his true form face and then his human face. "You're annoying. I want you out of my sight," he yells. Tohru fortunately pops out of the water, coughing, and she crouches in the water. We can see blood running down her arm where Kyo struck her. "Next time I'll cut your face up," he threatens her and turns away. and Tohru slowly walks away across the water. If I'm going to lose her anyway, he thinks, and we see his human form again, I'll hurt her so bad that she'll never forgive me. So bad that she'll never have to worry about me again. I'll wreck things so bad that she'll never want to look back. And we see Tohru continuing to walk away. Kyo covers his head with his hands. I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of losing people, sick of pity, sick of feeling miserable, and sick of having things forced upon me. We transition back to the memory of him with his mother. No, honey, she says. You're as human as anyone else. And she holds his arm. He looks up at her. You just turned into that form for a bit because of bad magic. This is the first time that we see her face, also, in this one memory. You turned back to normal right away, don't you? That proves it. It's all right. I'm not scared at all. Liar, he thinks. You were scared, weren't you? Isn't that why you checked dozens of times every day to make sure the rosary was on? I'm proud to have you as my son, his mother says in another memory. Yeah, right, he thinks. Why didn't you let me outside then? We see another memory of Kyo's mother standing in front of the door, like between Kyo and the door. I won't let anyone see you because you're so adorable, his mother says, and he thinks, you were ashamed of me, weren't you? No, I love you, she says, and then we see her checking his bracelet again. I would die for you. Why was that all you ever said? You never acknowledged the real me, he thinks, so why were you always proclaiming how much you loved me? We see a memory of the man that he yelled at before, saying, your mother loved you more than anything else, you know. Stop it, don't force that love on me, he shouts, and we transition again to the present. I don't need it, I don't need it. Tohru, who has almost made it to the other side of the lake, suddenly turns back, looking determined, and she runs through the water to him, tripping. She finally catches up to him, she finally climbs back up to him and holds his arm. Let's go home, we have to go back home, she says, and thinks, otherwise I have a feeling Kyo-kun won't come back to that house ever again. And we see an imagined scene of Kyo outside of the front door of Shigure's house. The door slams really quickly and eerily and quickly, sort of like with the same effect that was in that New Year's episode where they left her. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, it reminded me of that. Stop it, Kyo says, and Tohru says no, and he's like, don't you get it? And he yells at Tohru, and she says, no, I don't. And he tries to shake her off, but she manages to hold on. He actually lifts up his arm and slams her into the ground. I'm scared, she says, shaking. Right now, even though I hear your voice, it doesn't sound like you. You're in a form I've never seen, and it scares me. But from now on, I want to understand. Just like you listen to me when I'm discouraged, she says, crying. She remembers him talking to her when she was sick in the last episode that we watched, and outside of her grandfather's house and an earlier one, and up on the roof. From now on, I want you to share with me when you are. We cut back to the present. Tohru holds onto his arm and continues. I want you to tell me when you're hurting or scared or feeling weak, and let me worry about you, because I want us to keep living together. The scene that we see transitions in close to Tohru, she continues, crying, and we can see her arm still bleeding. To eat, to study, and worry, all those things, I want to continue to live life with you. It would have been fine if she didn't love me, Kyo says, suddenly back to his human form. Or if she was scared of me. Being scared would mean that she was looking at the ugly part of me. But Mom used love to avoid looking at me, he says, remembering his mother holding him and then checking his bracelet over and over again. I wanted her to think it through with me, to worry with me, to say that she wanted to live life with me, he says, and he cries. He looks at Tohru and thinks, I knew that it was stupid because nobody would ever say that to me. I was sure of it, but... And then in slow motion, he pulls Tohru close, and as they embrace fully, his hand tangled in her hair, both of them cry. Tohru, he says, Tohru. The sun starts to come out. This is how you melt away the ugly feelings, he thinks, and dark thoughts inside of me, bit by bit. How is it that someone like you would be by my side? That you would cry for me? Why do I wish for it? I know I shouldn't. I know I don't have any right to. Then we cut away, and we see Shisho holding Kyo's bracelet still, watching the sunrise. I know it's a mistake to be by your side, Kyo continues, and Shisho looks over and sees Tohru carrying Kitty Kyo in her arms, and he smiles. So why can't I help wanting to treasure you this time, to never leave you? I can't help wishing, Kyo says, and that's the end of the episode. Woo.
Woo.
Just a little woo. I thought this was interesting, this episode. Most of the things in this I felt like were very similar to the manga, but there's a couple things that weren't. Yeah, I feel like there were a couple of things to me that were noticeably different. One of them was how big Kyo's true form is. I felt he looks significantly bigger. I also felt like he looked less like Digimon-y, which was nice.
Yeah. I think they're going like trying to make it much more monstrous,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it worked a lot of the times, but not every time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like they had a lot more like aside from just how it looked and everything. I really liked that scene where he's like standing upright and most of the
Yeah.
body's in
That
shadows, but
was
with the eye
scary.
glowing, that one worked really well.
Yes.
Um, and I thought the voice worked pretty well too.
I thought so too.
And I think that works really well with the part where Toru's like, I know, like, I hear your voice, I know it's you, but it just sounds so weird, basically,
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
she exactly says.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought to add on to what you were saying before you continue, but like I thought that the other scene that works really well, like kind of physically, is when he first transforms and you see his eyes like glowing like right after. Like that
Yeah,
was really, I felt like it was a good, and it was like kind of creepy as
yeah,
well.
just that the eyes in general, they made them like
The
really
eyes were great.
striking and inhuman and
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and cool. I
yeah,
think they can do more with special effects now in anime because I
yeah,
can't remember. They were just kind of like purpley before, but this is like there's a lot of like glowy effects. Like there's kind of
yeah,
like like a ember effect too when he transforms, which was kind of
yeah,
cool.
yeah, and I like they really like dialed up the like body horror aspect of the transformation.
Oh
So
yeah, the whole scene where
yeah,
the extended. So yeah, it's like he transforms except for his head. Yeah, it's really creepy.
yeah,
It's
it's
really
very
uncanny.
yeah, it's very an American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, that's not. It's not. The transition isn't like that in the manga, which
Yeah, I
is
think
kind
it's
of
pretty
interesting.
fast when it happens in the manga and in the first anime.
Yeah, and more like seamless.
Hmm.
Like it was also kind of clear, like the way I felt like the way they animated it, the transition is like it happens in like parts. Like first it's like his like body, and then his like limbs, and then his head is last. So you can kind of see this like I guess you get the extended like I mean body horror, yes,
Yeah,
an extended kind of like internal struggle almost when
hmm
you see his face transforming last, right?
yeah,
I thought that
yeah,
was
and
an
like it's
interesting
obviously like
addition.
a painful process and everything.
Yeah, it seems like they also really dialed up the painful aspect. He like the whole so they do these like flashbacks between Akito, the time with Akito when he's a child and the present, and they do that a couple of times while he's transforming. But the whole time you hear him like groaning the whole time. So
Hmm.
his like also his Kyo's like voice in the present continues through the whole scene.
Hmm.
So there's this like undertone of him groaning while it's like transitioning between these two other times, like this time and the last time or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was made it more intense for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. And they also like obviously made the true form like seem more powerful with like all the
Mm-hmm.
damage it was doing, which that one I think had mixed results. But
Yes,
I
I would
like
say
the
that.
yeah. I like when he like leaves the dent on the roof, which
Yeah.
we get to add a bonus damage to Shigeru's house counter for the
Ooh, I
anime.
mean, what?
Yeah. I like the dent in the roof, and I like the when Toru comes back when he like flings his arm and she's like
Yes.
still hanging on. I think that worked well, but I think like the
When he
like
like
tossing her
flings her
into
into
the
the
lake was
lake.
kind of silly looking.
It was silly. It was too
But
much.
yeah,
Also, she like stands up, and it's like if he had flung her from that height, she would definitely be dead. Like she'd have a
yeah,
broken neck. Because then she stands up. It's not like she's. I
yeah, because it's
expected
like
her to
really shallow
like.
water.
Yes, I expected her to like swim, but she's like
Hmm.
kneeling on the bottom, and she walks across the bottom. So
Hmm.
like it's like barely a lake. I was like, oh, that's not what I expected. Like
Yeah,
physically, it's not what I expected to happen.
hmm
So yeah, I mean, this is the
yeah,
second time. I'd say the other like really egregious like weird like thing physical thing happening was when like Toru was up on the roof talking to Ritsu, and she like almost falls off the roof instead of him.
hmm
I mean, I feel like this was even worse, but I was like
yeah,
that was like over the top, these two like over the top like action things that didn't really need to happen. It's
yeah.
enough that he hurts her.
And even
Like it's
yeah,
enough.
I think they could have made it work, but just the way it was animated was a little silly. Like
Yeah, it was little
how she just kind of like goes
intense.
flying across the screen and then like bloops into the water.
Yeah,
It's
she kind of
just
like ragdolls into the
yeah,
water like head first
yeah,
almost as well. Yeah.
hmm
Like she doesn't get thrown back. She gets like flung into the air.
yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that.
yeah,
The
hmm
one where he tries to kind of like shake her off and she holds on is better.
hmm
I think it's I don't know, because they made him so much bigger and more powerful. It seems like it would be difficult for her to hold on to, but then
yeah.
she's able to. So
Hmm.
although
Yeah,
maybe
but
he
I think
wasn't
because they
trying that
made it
hard.
more like it was more like a surprise, kind of like like when she grabbed on you, more like kind of surprised and like turned over and like flung his arms, so it was less like he was like aggressively trying to
Yeah.
shake her off. So I think it worked for me for that
Hmm.
one. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but the other one I think is kind of over the top.
hmm
And it's I like I don't know, like I said, it's aggressive enough that he he injures her, I think. Like, why do you have to have him like fling her out?
Yeah, and I do like how you see like the blood running down her arm. I think that was a
Yes.
nice effect.
I think they've done a better. There's more just like gore isn't really the right word, but the physical, like, people's injuries have been dialed up. We've seen that before in this anime. Actually, yeah, and there's the opening scene. There's the opening scene of I remember some people when they first showed when they did the screenings for the first episode, and there's like the blood running into the street that's like implied that it's from Toru's mom's car accident. Yeah, and like I remember people seeing that and being like, "Oh shit!" Like, so I feel like they've done in this show they've amped up some of the like those types of violent aspects in a good way. I think actually in a more like, I don't know if it's a realistic way, but in a way that I think is more in line with like the tone of the series or helps in the tone of the series. So yeah, we constantly see her arm bleeding throughout the rest of the scene, which is good, I think.
Yeah. So I'd say overall a few missteps, but I do think they did a good job of making the true form like more intrinsically horrifying.
Yeah.
Because like we joked about how it was a little silly looking in the manga, but
it's also looking in the manga and the first anime. I feel like I feel like it looks more all along the same lines, but somehow a little bit more like monstrous instead of corny.
Yeah.
I guess there's a really fine line.
There is. I mean, that's why they always say like in horror movies don't show the monster. So
yeah,
it's really easy to cross over into silly with any kind of like monster design. So
it's true. It is scary if you don't show it. So yeah, that's true. And yeah, you're right. But I do think some of the actual like visual effects or like special effects helped with that too. Like the glowing eyes makes it really creepy. And the scene where he's shown standing up also makes it really creepy. There's something about that that's even more, it's like, it is kind of like a, I don't know. I haven't actually seen American Werewolf in London because I'm a terrible person. But like,
it's got a really great practical effects transformation scene. So
nice.
You can probably look up just that without having to watch the whole movie. Which, I mean, not having to. It's a good movie, but
well, maybe I should watch it.
It's a time commitment.
October's coming up. Maybe I can like watch it for Halloween or something.
But yeah, it's like a practical effect, and it's like slowly done, where like you see like the like limbs lengthening and transforming, and he's like obviously painful and stuff. So it's like a really classic like painful werewolf transformation scene. So.
It actually kind of reminds me, I mean, of a movie that both of us have seen. It reminds me of like Harry Potter, where whatever. I don't know if I should spoil Harry Potter in this, but there's a werewolf. So like in that scene where he's running around, like when he stands up, it's kind of similar. Like it looks like this, like it's like you're standing in a human way, like on your back legs, but then it's uncanny because he looks different. Like he looks like a animal rather than a human.
Yeah.
Kyo specifically. I mean, also in Harry Potter, but also I'm sure in other movies as well. But
yeah,
that specific scene, and also he's so much taller than her, and she has to like climb up this hill to get to him. She's so much like his physical strength and his form gives him that much more power over. He's in control of this like situation, I guess.
Yeah.
Until he gives in to her feels. Did you watch? You only watched the sub, right?
I watched the dub.
Oh, you watched the dub? How was the dub?
I sort of half watched the dub.
Okay.
When I watch the dub, I usually I watch the sub where I have to pay attention because I have to read it, and then I like watch the dub and am kind of doing other things at the same time. But yeah, it worked really well. The voice acting and emotion was good. I didn't notice any like big changes in the dialogue.
No, I felt like I feel like the subtitles had some of the things I think we should talk about probably were some of the maybe changes to how the subtitles were interpreted or something. Like I didn't actually check the original dialogue, but I mean the original translation is not exactly the same, so maybe we can talk about that. But like I wanted to ask you about the voice acting specifically. So
yeah, it was good. I think it was nice.
That's good.
Hit the good emotional notes that it should have.
Yeah, I felt the same way about the sub. There's a lot of like basically the whole time the Tohru's there at the end, she's like has this like crying voice, and I thought it was really well done. Like to the point where I was like, oh wait, when did she start crying? Like I had to go back and start listening to it. So yeah. And like she's not even, you can't even see her face. It's from like really far away, but you can tell. So so yeah, I thought that was good. And not even though there's some like crazy stuff in the animation, I felt like the voice acting wasn't overdone. Like the voice acting is really good.
It's very grounded in real emotion.
Kyo's lines are all really good. I felt like he has a really good, like he's trying to be scary and like yell at her and stuff to get her to go away. like he says, but then his internal thoughts are all like really just like desperate
Yeah.
sounding.
And also, like, in contrast to that, just how happy he sounded when he was first talking to Kazuma in his room. Like, I don't think I've ever heard him that happy in the series. And
I
it's
don't think
really,
so.
like, kind of like awe
Yeah.
right before everything goes terrible.
Yeah, I think like that was definitely a high emotional note in the episode. So I think the voice acting was done really well there. And then he's like immediately betrayed when he's like, you can't. I think that you should keep. Cosmo is like, I think you should keep living here or whatever.
Yeah.
He kind of goes back to sulking the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I think we talked about it like when we did the manga chapters, but just like how kind of childish it is. How like childlike he sounds when he's like, "You're breaking your promise." I mean, yeah,
Yeah, it's like you said you were gonna do this thing, and it's like, well, sometimes things happen. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, it's a very Kyo thing to think. He was holding on to that, I'm sure. So okay, so I guess just to like backtrack a little bit and just summarize the things that we learned. So like, because we do that. So we learned, of course, that Kyo has this, or the person who's possessed by the cat, not just Kyo, because we also talked about Cosmo's grandfather who was also possessed by the cat. There's this other form that they turn into that is this monstrous form. It's controlled by the bracelet that Kyo wears. So if you're one of the people who hasn't read this series or watched it before or whatever, like we can tell.
That's why there were all these significant bracelet shots throughout the series.
Yeah, especially last episode because it was building up to this. So the bracelet kind of controls that. It keeps him from turning into that thing, or into that form. We also know that there was an incident. So we saw a couple of memories and like flashbacks were used really heavily in this episode. One of the ones that we saw is of Kyo's time with his mother. So his mother was constantly... We only saw her face that one time, so most of the time her face isn't shown. And there was a bunch of scenes, like, they showed that scene of her checking his bracelet, like, a bunch of times. Like, there's, like, a successive... She checks his bracelet a bunch of times, and that was one, like, chunk of animation, and they showed it, like, 3 or 4 times. Like, it was showed a lot. And then also some other times, like her standing in front of the door, which I don't think was in the manga, so it was really surprising to me or whatever. It kind of like stood out to me. It's like she physically stopped him from going outside.
Yeah. I think that worked really well in contrast to her, like, you know, kind of
like comforting
like desperately like friendly way of talking to him. Like, oh, you're just so cute, I don't want to let anyone see you, while like physically standing in front of the door.
And physically standing in front of him for sure. So we also saw scenes of his mother's funeral, so we can tell from like all the things that people are whispering, like, oh, she only hadn't given birth to the cat or whatever, like, poor her, they say that it was a suicide or whatever. So we see these scenes. That's when Kazuma introduces himself to little Kyo, so we saw that memory.
And that actually happened a little later in the manga.
Oh, does that happen in the chapter after this one?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
I checked it because I checked for something else, but I happened to notice that's actually at the start of the next chapter.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so they interspersed it, but it felt very natural there. Cause
I think that's why I didn't realize it until I was checking for something else. And I was like, oh yeah, that happened afterward. But
because it all ties into all these things that he's saying, which like the stuff that he says. Well, there's some other memories, but the stuff that he says at the end is all about his mother. So it kind of ties into that better, I guess.
Yeah.
Instead of like that scene where he transforms back from his from the true form to his human form. He says all these things like, oh, I wish my mother had acknowledged that this is the way that I am or whatever. And so that almost kind of like sets up those things in the later chapter, but now it's like we had them first, which makes more sense. So it's nice. Or like it kind of, I don't know, it builds up to it in a better way, I think, a stronger way. The other memory that we have that's running throughout this is a time where Kyo transformed in front of Akito and Shigure was also there, which I always find to be really interesting. I think we talked about that a lot when we talked about this in the manga. It's like, why was Shigure there? I don't know. It's not really explained as of yet.
Yeah.
Or like, why did Akito even see his true form? It looks like what it looks like is that he was like brought there because nobody else is there. It's just like Akito and Shigure. It's not like something that happened. Like, it doesn't seem like something that happened like accidentally.
Yeah, and we see like the the bracelet in Akito's hands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it seems like Akito like deliberately,
Like pulled it
in the
off.
way he's like, oh, so this is Kyo's true form. Like he
Mm-hmm.
deliberately like brought him here. I don't know, just because he was curious.
Curious. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We still haven't heard Akito's voice acting that much. This is like one of the another just a little time where Akito is there, but also it's like little Akito as a kid,
Yeah.
which is also interesting
Mm-hmm.
to note. So yeah, so it's interesting that Shigure already knows about this because then
Mm-hmm.
also we saw some other people. So like Kyo transforms in the present. Kyo transforms, and like Kagura's watching. Yuki's like by the window, and
Mm-hmm.
Shigure is shown, which I think is interesting. But it looks I don't know if he's
Mm-hmm.
like listening, if it's implied that he's listening. He's like sitting in the dark in his office.
Yeah. Could just be like brooding over what he knows is happening. But
Yeah, but ignoring
since
it.
Kazuma actually, told him what was going to happen. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I think there
Kagura heard too.
was. Yeah, there's something I took a note of. Is it seemed like there was more emphasis on the people like listening and watching
Yeah.
that scene, because we see like in the manga we just see at the end of the conversation between Kazuma and Shigure that Kagura is listening, but we see her
Mm-hmm.
actually like stumble on the conversation.
And then leave. Like she
Yeah.
listens to it and then walks away.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of emphasis on her being there.
Yeah, and like we saw her like watching throughout the whole transformation scene in the manga,
Mm-hmm.
but Yuki we only saw at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, it
so
was
it's
just
not
like
clear like how much she saw or heard.
right. It was like almost like not like an afterthought, but like he's yeah. It's not clear if he just kind of like was listening at the end or not. But in this,
Yeah,
we saw that he was there the whole time as well.
yeah, and I thought his like how he's shown is kind of interesting because he's sort of like standing near enough the window to be like listening to it, but he's not facing the window until the
Mm-hmm.
very end.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm not sure if he's facing it at the end, but like the blinds are up at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not clear how much he's. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty obvious that he heard everything for
Yeah.
sure, but yeah. And he's also deliberately standing there. Like none of them look comfortable. They're all
Yeah.
like Kagura's standing at the window, Yuki's like standing there. So,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Tohru comes out at the end too.
Yeah.
It was also interesting that like I think in the manga and the original anime, like Kyo doesn't. Does Kyo see that she's there before he transforms? I forget.
He does. They made it like kind of less obvious. She like in this one she's coming up behind Kyo,
Mm-hmm.
and in the manga at least she's coming up behind Kazuma, so he like
Right,
sees
he
her
sees her.
over his shoulder.
Right.
But in this time, I kind of liked
Turns
how
around.
like he had. I can't remember what Cosmo said right before, but something about like indicating that he was gonna like make sure she knew or whatever, and he kind of like his eyes widen and he like turns around like you
Mm-hmm.
like suddenly
He's
realized the implication there and that
yeah. It's
she was
probably
watching.
it's probably like he's like I'm going to take away that choice for you or something.
Yeah, something like that. But
I'm going to look. Oh, he says let's find out. Yeah, let's find out if your life is truly already over. And then he like turns around and sees her and then transforms.
yeah, and it has to like we'll see whether you'll lose like what you have here or whatever, something like that.
The other thing that was kind of interesting was like I felt like in this it seems like he just covers his eyes, but in the manga and in the original anime there was like a slap like sound effect
Yeah.
if he like slapped his face physically, which I don't think is implied in this version.
Yeah, because it's like I think it kind of combines with Toru coming up behind him instead, because he like turns his head to face her, and so he's already kind of in that like turned away position.
He doesn't have to be
And then
distracted, I guess.
yeah, and then he like covers his eyes and takes him out, rather than it being like he was like pushing him back at the same time.
Yeah. There's a really interesting discussion about this on this scene, that specific part on Tumblr, which I was avoiding reading until now, but now I can read it. I mean, but they were specifically like talking about how that can be interpreted. I should put a link to that. I'll send it to you too, because it was a lot of people had really interesting opinions about like why Kazuma covers Kyo's eyes, like what is the symbolism of that specifically. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I do think the use of flashbacks is really interesting, and I like the way that it starts with the one with Kyo's mother's dead at the beginning, right? And then it kind of goes through. One thing that we talked about when we talked about these chapters is also the structure of the like memories and flashbacks, which was different because different content was covered at the same time. But this is interesting because it takes that. So it starts with the flashback of her funeral, and then when he transforms, and it kind of like goes all the way through the scene where he transforms, or like this memory where he transformed to Akito, and then his mother like found him and comforted him, and then like the aftermath, or what feels like the aftermath of that, or things that he remembers from being after that time where she checks his bracelet all the time and all this other stuff. And that builds up to the final thing that he says at the end of the episode to Tohru.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I can't remember if it's that different from the manga, but I like kind of the progression of like how the flashback has like kind of the transformation, and then like his mother reacting to it like with denial or whatever, and then the like present day one, which is like the transformation, which leads up to Tohru like reacting honestly with fear and acceptance and everything. So the kind of direct contrast of those two.
Yeah, I think in the manga,
Like, I know we see all of that
similar.
all of that. Yeah, I know we see all that together, but I think just how like the slight changes to the dialogue,
yes,
at the end with Kyo, it kind of makes it more of a complete direct comparison between the two, which is nice. Yeah.
It makes it clearer because so I went back and looked because I was like, that's very direct, like what he's saying. And I looked at the dialogue, at least from the chapter from the manga that we read, and it's very like it's like a little bit different. So
yeah, it's like the same gist, but he's like talking directly to Tohru rather than talking about his mother.
Right. He's like, you being scared is proof that you're actually looking at my ugliness, but like this is like that's what he says in the manga, where as opposed to saying to her, saying in the anime, he says, it would have been fine if she was scared of me. Being scared would mean that she was looking at the ugly part of me, but mom used love to avoid looking at me, or something like that. So like and then instead in the manga he's like, oh, do you really think it was just enough to talk like you loved me? So like they're kind of they're very it's all the same idea, but it kind of feels like
the manga made like the stuff with his mother subtext, and the anime kind of made the stuff with Tohru more subtext.
Yeah, I agree with you. It becomes more about
because he's more like in the manga he's talking like to Tohru like, you did it this way and it's good, with the implication that his mother didn't do it that way, which was bad.
Yes.
And in the anime it's more like his mother didn't do it this way, which was bad. And with the implication that the way Tohru did was good.
Yeah, for sure. I think that changes it. I mean, it's about him and his mom rather than him and Tohru being different from his mom. Just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he just kind of like tries to make it more of a coherent like arc about being accepted kind of thing.
I guess so.
Yeah, like a one episode kind of little arc about that kind of thing, which I mean it does like feed into what Cosmo says at the beginning about like when we're talking about like if she'll accept him or not, and if he'll reject that acceptance and everything. So
yeah, I don't know. I agree with you though that I agree with you about that, because it brings all those, by bringing some of those memories into this like part of the story, it makes it cohesive, and it makes his reaction more of a like the culmination of that rather than the setup for that.
Yeah,
what gets talked about after in the manga.
Yeah, like I think part of it is kind of a consequence of them like making it a one episode thing, which I think was the right choice, because I don't think it's really enough happening to fit 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think in the original anime it was 2 episodes, but there's a lot of filler time.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff, like her like running into Uo and Hana.
Oh, yeah,
Hana,
I forgot about that.
Hana like rugby tackling Uo several times.
You reminded me. I tried to block that out of my memory.
Yeah, because like...
And Akito's there. And so many things happen.
Yeah. And like as far as like actual stuff that actually happens, there's not really a lot. Like Cosmo comes by, takes off Kyo's bracelet, they run into the woods, and then they come back. Like, it's all emotional, internal stuff, and you can do that fast. And you can do that faster in a animated series than in a manga. So we've talked about that before, about how they can
overlay.
They can overlay dialogue and internal thoughts with imagery. So
it probably took me longer to describe the scene where he transforms than the actual amount of time in the scene, because I have to say like, and now we see Akito, and Akito says this, and now we see like this thing, and this happens. And you can do it so much faster. Yeah,
because I mean humans process visual input very quickly.
Yeah.
So you don't have to dedicate very much time for someone to be able to process that is on my screen and is happening, as opposed to like having to dedicate like a whole page of a manga to something.
Yeah, I think that was done very effectively.
Yeah.
In general.
And so I think by keeping it to one episode, it does kind of they try to create like a single episode arc also.
Yeah. So I think it all fits into one episode. And it was a good choice. It's long, like the last scene extends into the credits, but
Yeah, that's the thing I like that they do.
like
When I always like that in a series, when it's like they start playing like credits music, either like end credits music over the like cool down stuff like this, or when like there's a awesome like badass scene and they start playing the opening credits scene, and you're like, oh my god. But
yes.
yeah, I enjoy use of credits music in like actual shows. Yeah.
This one is especially good too because like the lyrics are all like about kind of like about moving forward with your life and stuff like that. So it was good. It was a good fit for this scene as well, which is nice. I felt. It's all like spread your wings, don't look back. Spread your metaphorical wings.
Yeah.
And it ends in the same place as like the manga chapter does. So
Yeah.
the next episode is called like did I even write down? Summer will be here soon.
Yeah, it's like it's almost summer or something.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to get to see what will be included in that.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I have one other weird, funny comment to say, which is like Kagura sings about getting Shisho's futon. I'm like, people sing about a bunch of weird things in this series. That's the second time in like 2 episodes.
I feel like I've seen that in a few anime where the character's just kind of like singing what they're doing.
Like, we got to show her walking in the hall, so she's singing to herself about Shisho's futon.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I sing songs to myself. Seems realistic. I approve.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do too.
That's where all the best parodies come from. I don't know. Okay, so do you have any other non-spoiler things to say then?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. Very good. I think that's it for now. So next time we're going to be talking about the last episode of the first season. Ooh. I think. Yeah. It's exciting. I don't know. And then we get to focus on the manga again. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Actually enjoyed talking about the anime sometimes, but sometimes it's very similar, and it's like, well, I don't know what we're going to say this week.
Yeah.
This one had some interesting, I think the main difference is like the visual effects and then some of the dialogue made things a little bit, have a different lean. It was just all the same stuff, all the same things happened, but
yeah,
I think we've seen it before where the dialogue, maybe the translation or something makes things, you can interpret it in a slightly different way, or maybe it's a little bit clearer how it's supposed to be linked to other things that are happening, I guess. So I feel like that happened, but other than that, I don't have any other significant comments.
Yeah.
I thought the sound was good too. They used a lot of, we got some new like dark music, I felt. And then some of the scenes where it's like silent, they use silence really well again in some of the scenes. I can't remember something off the top of my head, but. And of course, like the last scene playing out over the credits, we both liked. I like that too. So, yeah, all right, good. Yeah, next time, last episode. It's gonna be a good time. Woo! Who knows what it'll be about? None of that, whatever it was, probably wasn't in the last anime. I think, unless, well, there's a couple of things that were in the last anime that haven't been done yet, but
it's just like a shot-for-shot remake of the original anime's finale episode,
where it's like content. I feel like the original anime is like famous for not having because like the series wasn't done yet, so there's just like a random like end that wasn't in the manga, so that would be funny too. I'd be like, what the fuck? Well, on that note, as I would say in Top Gear, like on that bombshell, it's time to end. What do you think the crossovers of Top Gear fans and Kuruma fans? Probably really low.
Yeah, it's not even at least 2 because I'm not a Top Gear fan.
Well,
so.
I don't know if I would describe myself as a Top Gear fan, but I sure have seen a lot of it on TV when other people were watching TV. So
I have not. I'm like, oh, that's a show that exists.
Yeah, it barely exists anymore.
Yeah.
Since one of the hosts like punched someone in the face, which is awful. So dumb. Anyway, it's all great. Listen, we'll see you next time for more anime.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes, so spoilers. We're back to talk about spoilers. Definitely wasn't just talking about Jeremy Clarkson punching someone in the face. There was a brief scene of Cosmo's grandfather, who was previously the cat, and I felt like the Kat's room was really intense compared to like before, to other times that we've seen it in the manga or in the old anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very obviously locked away.
Yes. Instead of being like a window with like bars, it was like prison bars, like old school style.
Mm-hmm.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, and you could like see a lock on them and everything. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was intense. And it was really dark,
Mm-hmm.
scary, as some of the other things were
Yeah.
in this
Yeah,
episode.
like I think at this point in the manga, all we saw was like one panel of like a hand coming through a window or something. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they even showed the room, like the cat's room yet.
Yeah.
Like the one, I can't remember which part they show it in, but they have that one like kind of preview. There's that one preview panel of it, and then it doesn't come up until like the chapters that we were just reading that he's going to be locked away. So yes, so that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler wise, I felt.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I had written down. Although I just looked at the notes and there's something I forgot to mention for non-spoilers. But
no, what was it?
Just that I don't think they had it in the manga, but they had like in the early scene when they're all sitting around where Kyo like grabs his wrist and like covers his bracelet.
Yeah.
Which I just thought it was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Talking at the beginning. I can't remember what said to like trigger that. It might have been like when Kazuma's asking Tohru like if she knows about the curse or whatever. Yeah. But
it was in that scene where they're introducing themselves, right?
Yeah.
Or they're introducing him rather and like greeting him.
Yeah.
Shisho, I mean. Yeah. He's also very standoffish in that part, which is nice. Well, it'll be interesting. So next time is going to be it's like summer's almost here or whatever. We called it something different both times. I think. Summer will be here soon. Yeah, is what it's called. Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know what that's. I don't know what conversation that's a reference to. Actually,
Yeah,
I think it's
I'm not sure what
saying it.
Yeah, it's Toru saying it. I'm not sure what direct conversation it is. I know, like she and Yuki talk about summer in their one of their conversations in the chapter directly after the true form arc, but I don't know if she says that directly.
I'm looking in our old episode notes really quickly.
You're just gonna cut straight to the beach arc.
Yeah. It's Momiji being like, summertime.
Yeah.
Well, they cut a bunch of things in between. So, or not cut, but sorry, they added a bunch of things that were in between.
Yeah.
Like Ritsu, Hana's backstory, Uo's backstory, all those things, almost all of them happened before the beach arc and they've already been done.
Yeah. Hero too.
Hero, right.
I mean, there's not a lot of like plotty stuff that actually happens between the true form arc and the beach arc, really.
Well, we meet the student council, which we haven't met yet.
Yeah.
There's like it says the chapter after the true form arc is like quote unquote some Yuki stuff. Toru and Yuki go to Yame's shop and we introduce Mine.
Oh yeah.
Then there's Hiro, then there's the bathing suit, there's the Makoto, like this Yuki fan club, Ritsu. There's like a scene. There's the episode, not the episode. There's the chapter where like Yuki talks to Yame in the garden. That happens. The haunted house and student council, and then Kureno and Uo. And then which hasn't been covered. Hana's backstory was covered.
Yeah.
Toru goes to visit Shisho. The hat is revealed, and then they go to the beach. So there's a couple things that still haven't been covered yet by the anime, which I think is too much to cover in one episode. But some of it you could.
Yeah, but I mean they're already talking about summer like at that point in the.
Yeah, it's because they skipped ahead to like. Well, they also showed the bathing suit one where they're like, it's summer now in the pool.
Yeah.
Longest summer ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like even like right after the true form arc, they're talking about like summer coming up. So.
Yeah, even at the beginning, that was like it was all set up because Toru was like, "Oh, do you like summer, Kyo? Do you like summer?" And then she looks back and he's like standing on the other side of the road still. Yeah, so they have that little conversation before as well.
And I think like some of that stuff happens in the summer, like the visiting Shisho happens in the summer. I think even maybe the Uo and Kureno stuff happens in the summer.
It all happens in the summer. That all happens after the. Yeah, it's a long summer.
So, yeah, I imagine it'll just be like kind of like follow up and laying some groundwork kind of stuff in the next episode to like foreshadow stuff from the next season. I imagine it won't be anything like really significant.
I don't think so. But like so one thing that was kind of interesting is like the amount of times that like Yuki was shown and Kagura were shown. Like they showed the same scenes in them over and over again. Like it's repeated. So like it's obvious. It was obvious that both of them were listening during the manga, but I think it's going to be even more obvious. So they might have some of that stuff from the chapter after of like Yuki's stuff.
Yeah.
They'll probably bring back the hat. I bet.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have like Tohru being like saying like she wonders how Kagura feels or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the like it'll be summer soon is like one of the last lines or something from the next episode.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that recently too with like Kazuma showing up and saying "You look well." That was like the very last line of the previous episode. So.
I think like they talk about summer again. Yuki and Tohru talk about summer again in their conversation, like at school the next day. And Yuki's like, "Oh, I want to make like memories with you over the summer or whatever."
Yeah.
Because I think there was some things that we had just read really recently, right before the beach arc, where she's like, "It's gonna be summer soon. I just know it's summer." Remember we were talking about how it's like so strongly foreshadowing
at the end,
it's like
at the
summer's
end of,
gonna be great.
Like the previous volume, I think, where she was like, "Oh, all that about summer." So yeah, I'm not sure which. Yeah, I'm not sure which exact conversation it comes from.
Summer's so great. Summer's gonna be so awesome.
Because they talk about summer coming for a long time. So.
Anyway, it could be a bunch of things, I guess, but
yeah.
I don't know. Especially because so many of the things that happened in between this and the rest of the summer stuff, like the beach arc, haven't happened yet, or have already been covered.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Oh, one thing that was kind of set up, of course, was like Kagura. They had their little discussion about Shisho being Kyo's, like his real father or whatever, but it's going to set up that hopefully I wonder if they'll cover any of that stuff in the next episode.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll, which would make sense.
Yeah, I feel like they might like do that and then like maybe do some like setup for the next season and then like end with a "it'll be summer soon" kind of comment.
It'll be summer soon. It's already summer.
Yeah.
They were already in the pool. Yes.
I feel like, I can't remember if it was from a later chapter. Didn't we see like a glimpse of like Kagura running away from like the true form transformation?
You mean as a little kid?
Yeah.
In the manga or?
In the manga. Because I didn't see it in the anime. So.
Oh. In the last episode of the anime, there was the scene where they're in the grocery store and she like remembers when she was a little kid and saw him transform. And then we saw that.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've gotten to any more detail about that point yet in the manga where we're at now, if that's what you're asking. There is like more detail about that scene later, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I'm trying to remember, I thought we saw like a glimpse of it that wasn't very clear, like what was going on, but like was Kagura running away or something? But
I thought it was just her as a little kid looking scared. I don't know. I don't have any other big spoilery things to say. Mostly just those things like the stuff with Kazuma's grandfather and also like Kyo and Kazuma's relationship. So
yeah.
Okay, good. A short wrap up then. Oh, I didn't say thank you all for listening. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see what's going to be in the next episode because it'll surely be different from the original anime unless they just reanimate the whole ending. How dare you? How dare you plant that in my mind, in our collective unconscious? I would just laugh and then just slam my computer and be like, "There's no episodes. We're not doing another anime episode." I feel like overall we've had a very positive view of the anime. I feel like sometimes I see people give really like negative kind of opinions of it. But my only complaints are of Kyo flinging Tohru into the lake, essentially. It's like, how dare.
Yeah, and even that I don't think was a bad choice, just not executed well.
Yeah. Fling her lower into the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, they're up on a hill.
Yeah, I think if they'd had her like go skidding across at ground level and like landing at the edge of the water or something, that would have worked better. But
yeah, it's kind of what happened in the original one. I mean, she wasn't in the water, but he kind of like flung her around, just like this time how he kind of like flung her on the ground. Like that's what happened, I think, in the original anime. And also Yuki was there, which like whatever. At least he wasn't there this time. Okay, good. Great discussion. Thank you all for listening. Next time we're going to talk about the last episode of the anime for now. Until season 2, I guess. Which will be exciting. I think we've gotten to the end of almost the end of everything that was animated the first time.
Yep.
So, yeah. It's going to be fun.
Woo.
Woo. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Shigure introduces Shisho to Kyo and explains that Kazuma is Kyo's martial arts master and taught Yuki and Kagura and Haru as well.
Introduces Shisho to Tohru.
Hmm?
You said he introduces Shisho to Kyo.
Oh, wait. Okay, good.
It's like I think they know each other.
Kyo, this is your master. How do you feel about him?